What's happening, leaders, and welcome back to another episode of the Humble Leader Podcast. Podcast where we talk all things leadership and we talk about it with industry leading experts. I'm Jeremy, your host. As always, if we're adding value to you, your organizations, please do us a favor, leave us a rating and review. Let us know how we're doing and how we can help you become better leaders in everyday organizational life. First podcast in several months, and we're super excited. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we're a podcast that's all about leadership. We love to talk leadership, and today's no different. We've been on a short little hiatus for the last several months as I've had to be out handling some things on the personal and professional side of life, and had to take a break as we rebranded the podcast and moved from Mullins Muster to the Humble Leader Podcast. And we're so excited to get it back up and running, back off the ground, and into the next phase and into the next chapter of the podcast and the business itself. And so we thank you for your patience over the last several months. We're super excited to get this thing rolling. And so today we're going to just kick off with a lesson from me. We're going to talk about Ted Lasso. I know what you're thinking. What on earth are we talking about Ted Lasso for? For those of you who do not know, Ted Lasso is the name of an Apple TV series, and it was all centered around, just to give you a quick background, it was all centered around an American football coach that was brought to England to coach a soccer team. And the owner of the team wanted to bring him there to completely sabotage it and ruin it. I'm not going to go into all the details why, but that was the reasoning why they brought an American football coach over to coach a European soccer league or European football league team. And over the course of his time there, he took the team from kind of the bottom of the ladder within their league and took them to the top. And it didn't come without controversy. It didn't come without challenges. There were personal issues. There were professional issues. There were all types of things that he had to overcome as the head coach of that team. I was a fan of the show and I watched it. And just because I'm a sports person in general and I love everything about sports, it's always intriguing to me. And I picked up really 13 different lessons that came out of the 3 seasons of that show. I'm just going to take some time, talk with you briefly about my take from the show. So again, these leadership lessons aren't anything that was directly addressed within the show itself, where Ted gave a talk about all these things and I'm just sitting here regurgitating those. These are just some lessons that I picked up on throughout the time of watching the show. And then I'm just going to unpack each and every one of those just a little bit. And so let's dive right in. Let's get it started. So there were about 13 different things. The first one is believe in yourself. You have to believe. You believe in yourself. You believe in your team. And more often than not, we tend to be our own worst critics. You know, especially when we're first starting a new endeavor, we're trying something new, we're going into a new job, maybe we're opening a business, whatever the case may be. You know, we got to believe in ourselves, because in the beginning, nobody really cares if you fail or not, because you haven't done anything, you haven't established anything, and so nobody's really going to care that much. If you're starting something new, a little endeavor within your own workplace, place you've been established for a little bit, your boss might care a little, but as long as you don't truly affect the bottom line and the overall success of the team, they really don't care if you go out and fail at it or not, because no harm, no foul, right? But you beat yourself up whenever you fail, because you know that deep down inside you can do better. You know that. But when we fail, sometimes we often have a tendency to not start again because we're not sure if we can go through another defeat. We're not sure how we're going to handle that. But I'm going to tell you that you have to believe in yourself. Look, life throws all kinds of challenges at us. I was recently watching a different documentary about coaches on Netflix. Again, like I said, I'm a sports person. I eat it up. Nothing comes easy. You look at sports in general, especially professional sports. Nothing comes easy. I mean, the NFL, for example, the average game is decided by less than 7 points. That is razor thin. Wins and losses and how people are hired and fired are are just super tight numbers. But they are constantly willing to face the pressure, to step back up because they believe in themselves. They know that they can do a good job. And it doesn't matter what the overall outcome is, they know that they have the capability to do great. And no matter what kind of setbacks come their way, they're going to continue to walk through it and figure out how to be better the next time. Just because you have success doesn't mean you're always going to be a champion. That's how they view it. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the process, but they believe in themselves. And that's what it ultimately boils down to, is that you have to believe in yourself. So Ted Lasso says that, believe in yourself, believe in your abilities, believe in your education, both formal and informal. Believe in it. Believe in the folks that are around you and believe that anything is possible. Don't get down on yourself for too long. Yes, we're all going to have setbacks. We're all going to have failures. It's okay to lick your wounds for a day or so and then get back on the horse, get back out there. Don't give up on yourself. Keep growing every day. And when you suffer those setbacks, lick your wounds no more than 24 hours and get back at it. Consistency over time equals amazing results. So stay consistent, don't quit, and always believe in yourself. Always believe. The second thing that I took away from Ted and the series is doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. Doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. Oftentimes, this is a lot easier said than it is done. On the surface, it seems like it's a no-brainer, but oftentimes there are a lot of extenuating circumstances that make it extremely difficult to do that. As an example, I was having a conversation recently, and I told him that in certain situations, you need to walk away. And you don't need to be a part of those conversations. He said, do you know how much ridicule I'll take if I walk away? And I had to explain to him that even though that there's ridicule that may come your way, you still have to do what is right. You still have to do what is right. Another way to look at it is that it's basically just a loose definition of integrity. Andy Stanley says it's doing what you ought to, even if it costs you. Doing what you ought to, even if it costs you. And so sometimes doing the right thing might mean taking a stand, even if it costs you your job. If it costs you losing some friends, because you know that the actions that they're participating in are wrong. Or even staying alone when society doesn't necessarily agree with your beliefs. Doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. Put people over process and make sure that you're always doing right by others. Another great lesson that came from Ted in this series was all people are different people. And I think in today's society that's not an argument. We all understand that. All people are different people. And at the end of the day, we're looking at, I think if you put it in societal terms, we're talking about diversity. It's absolutely undeniable that all people are different. Every single person possesses a unique set of experiences, perspectives, talents that shape who they truly are, that shape their identities. It's those types of awesome and remarkable differences that enrich our lives. Think about the countless different aspects that go into our individuality. You're looking at cultural backgrounds, looking at belief systems, personal histories. All that stuff shapes the lens in which we perceive the world. You talk about the different languages we speak, the foods we eat, the customs we embrace. It's all a reflection of our distinct identities. And with those come individual strength, skills, and talents that pave the way for growth. Every single person on the team, regardless of what position they play, whether they're in finance, whether they're in project management, whether they're in training and development, doesn't matter. It does not matter where they sit. Every person has something valuable to offer. It could be a creative vision, it could be problem solving, it could be leadership. If we embrace our differences and all the different experiences that people bring to the table, we truly can create an environment where everybody contributes and their individual perspectives help make us better. And it brings awesome ideas and solutions to things that we may not have thought about previously. So it's not just a mere tolerance when we talk about diversity. We're not just talking about a tolerance level there. It calls for genuine respect and understanding. As long as we continue to recognize and appreciate the differences that define us, man, the sky's the limit. Because at that point, we foster empathy, compassion, and more importantly, unity. Another lesson from Ted was, hey, let's see good in others. All people are different people. We just talked about that. But let's see good in others. And in our society right now, that is oftentimes overlooked. It's not difficult to do, but we choose not to do it. We have so many different things that start to pigeonhole us down a certain way of thinking. And oftentimes cancel culture puts us in a boat where we're like, well, we can't even associate with this other group, with anyone over there, because then I may seem weak. I may seem like I'm taking their side. And that's not the case. There's good in everybody. We have to remember that there is a lot of power when we see good in others. It's easy to focus on the flaws, the mistakes, the differences. But when we make an effort to seek out the positive within them, man, brings us closer together, makes us more unified. When we choose to see the good in others, we open up ourselves to all kinds of possibilities. We start to recognize that every individual has a unique story, experience, perspective that shapes who they are. Seeing the good in others doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye to their imperfections. Nobody's perfect. We address things that need to be addressed. We're all human. We all stumble in many ways. All we're saying is that we're just going to recognize that behind every face, there's untold battles fought. There's dreams pursued. There's lessons learned. It's acknowledging that, hey, we're all flawed. And we're just trying to navigate life in the best way that we can. When we seek out good in others, we inspire them to bring forth their best selves. That whole attitudes are contagious, that old saying, this is what I'm talking about here. When we're looking for the good in others, then they're going to bring their best self. Our belief in their potential can serve as a catalyst for personal growth, self-improvement, all just by extending a small olive branch to show that you see the good in them. If you offer a helping hand, words of encouragement, a little bit of kindness, you contribute to the overall positive development of individuals and their communities even. So let's make a conscious effort. Let's make a conscious effort to see the good in others, even when it seems extremely challenging. Once you do that, you're going to find that you have more in common than you think. So choose kindness over judgment. Choose empathy over indifference. Choose unity over division. And by doing so, you create the environment of acceptance, compassion, and appreciation. And those are guiding principles to help ensure that you're seeing good in others. Another lesson from Ted is courage is being willing to try. Courage is being willing to try. Remember, courage is not an absence of fear. It's simply the strength to face the fears and embrace the unknown. That's what courage truly is. I've had the privilege of working with a ton of very courageous people throughout my adult life, and they're scared. They'll admit it, scared. So it's not the absence of fear. That absolutely exists within each and every one of us. We all have moments where we're scared. It's the courage to be willing to face the fears and embrace the unknown. It's the audacity to step outside the comfort zones, to take that leap of faith no matter what the outcome may be. Look, we're constantly challenged with obstacles nowadays. We know that the only thing constant in life is change, and change comes quick, especially in a post-COVID world. Holy cow, the amount of change that's happened over the last 3 years, and it continues to run at an extremely rapid and fast pace. Look at all the talks with AI and how fast it's moving, and how some people are saying maybe it's moving too fast. Right? Change is just moving. And it's going to present all kinds of obstacles along the way. But courage is the driving force that pushes us to pursue our dreams, chase our passions, and strive for excellence in everything we do, even though there's constant change. Because without courage, we remain stagnant. We're trapped within the confines of what we already know, of our comfort zone, and that's no place where we need to stay. We got to dare to try, because if we're trying, then we're unlocking a world of possibilities. It's through that trying that we learn and we grow. Every attempt, whether we're successful or not, provides us with valuable lessons and experiences that we can take and apply to our lives. Courage grants us the opportunity to discover true potential. We can tap into some hidden talents because we're discovering things that we never knew. And we're truly uncovering the depths of our capabilities. We're truly figuring out what we are capable of. History is full of examples of individuals who've embodied the spirit of courage. I told you I've had the privilege of working with a lot of courageous individuals throughout my entire adult life. But you talk about explorers who ventured into the unknown, Christopher Columbus, guess what? That took courage to say, nope, the world is not flat, it is round, and we're going to find new land. That took courage. What about scientists who defy convention? When you look at the COVID vaccine and how we got to that point, regardless of your stance on it, the fact that we got to a vaccine within, I think it was 8 or 9 months, is absolutely crazy based on previous FDA standards, right? But that was scientists who pushed the limits and found ways to get it done. Leaders who stand up for justice and equality, your Nelson Mandelas of the world, they all take a large leap of faith and they follow their courageous instincts that guide their beliefs and their efforts because they know that those efforts would end up making a difference. But at the end of the day, courage is not just limited to grand gestures or heroic acts. It's found in everyday choices we make. It's the student that raises their hand in class. Despite their fear of being wrong or people making fun of them, if they're willing to raise their hand to get clarification, to ask the questions, that's a courageous move. What about the entrepreneur that launches a business despite the risk of failure? A lot of brand new businesses fail. They fail. And it's a courageous move for somebody to step out on their own and to say, I'm going to give this the old college try. We're going to see where this goes. Or Going back to what we talked about earlier, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. A lot of times that is a courageous act within itself because it may be a very unpopular decision. And a lot of times those seemingly small acts of courage collectively shape our lives and the world that's around us. Embracing courage requires us to be vulnerable. It means acknowledging our weaknesses and uncertainties. And it's accepting that we may stumble and fall along the way, but we understand that failure is not a reflection of our worth. Instead, it's simply a stepping stone towards growth and excellence. Another lesson talked about through TED is vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. I think that there's a common misconception out there that vulnerability is a weakness. But the more and more I do some research, I hear other leaders talk about this, vulnerability is not a weakness. In fact, it is a tremendous strength. It's a force that connects us and empowers us, especially when you talk about it in a leadership aspect. If you're walking around and all the people that you lead, that all the people on your teams, and they think that you're invincible, that you're this Superman figure or Superwoman figure, it may make things more difficult. They may not be as quick to come and ask you questions. But when they see that you're vulnerable, when they see that you're human, they see that you are in fact an approachable person, then that connects you. We live in a world that glorifies invincibility and being an emotional fortress. And even I make the joke a lot of times that, look, I don't have feelings, you're not going to hurt them. But that's not really true. It's actually a gateway to empathy and understanding. When we open up ourselves and expose some of our true selves, we create space for others to do the same. Going back to all people are different people, when we're allowing people to be themselves, to be them true selves through their vulnerabilities, we create that space for them, that safe space for them. And it's through that vulnerability that we build the deep meanings of relationship. We forge bonds based on trust, based on authenticity. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same, and we have that environment of compassion and support. Look, embracing vulnerability takes courage. Takes courage. Are you starting to see how all these things tie together in some way, shape, or form? Whether it's courage, vulnerability, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. It all ties together in a lot of different ways. And embracing vulnerability requires courage. We face our fears. We acknowledge our imperfections. We step into the unknowns. I saw a documentary about the U.S. women's soccer team, and they were talking about their coach. And she was talking about her journey as a coach, and she was hired by UCLA, and I believe it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and she was actually gay. And she was extremely scared to mention that to her team, to talk about that with others. And because she was afraid that how it may impact her job, how her players may look at her, and how it would affect her recruiting efforts, because that wasn't necessarily something that was always talked about at the time. But she went ahead and came out, told her players, told her boss, and everybody was like, okay, cool. Well, we got a game to play, so let's go play the game. But she showed vulnerability there. She showed courage by stepping out and telling people that. And at the end of the day, nobody cared. And they just went back to work, started playing. And then from that, she continued to grow as a coach, as a leader, and eventually became the head coach of the U.S. women's national soccer team. She said that after she did that, the weight was lifted off her shoulders, and she was able to just truly focus on what she needed to and become an even better soccer coach. Vulnerability, it's also a birthplace of creativity, of innovation. When we open ourselves up to experiences, ideas, perspectives, we allow the possibility for growth and for transformation. It's through that vulnerability that breakthroughs truly occur, that barriers are shattered, and new paths are forged. When we embrace vulnerability, we tap into true potential and unlock limitless possibilities that lie within us. The seventh lesson I took away from Ted is tell the truth. Tell the truth. Right now, you turn on the news, you see all the headlines, there's fake news, there's this, there's that. Nobody knows who's really telling the truth. There's polls out there that people don't trust the FBI, the DOJ, the government. They don't trust what's going on in other parts of the world, the political landscape. There's so much deception and half-truths out there. It's tough. It's tough. You don't really know where to find all the truth. There's so much misinformation. But at the end of the day, honesty stands as a pillar of integrity, trust, and personal growth. Telling the truth is more than just a moral obligation. It's the foundation by which all relationships and interactions are built. Move at the speed of trust. It was Covey that said, move at the speed of trust. All of our relationships are built on trust and truth. When we speak truth, we establish that trust, that authenticity that connects us with others. Honesty forms the bedrock of genuine and meaningful communications. Truth has an unbelievable power to heal and to transform. It allows for open dialogue, allows for understanding. It fosters empathy and compassion. When we're sharing truth, we're inviting others to do the same. Again, we create that environment of vulnerability, connection. Honest conversations allows us to bridge gaps, resolve conflicts, build stronger bonds between individuals and our communities. While telling the truth can be challenging at times, it is absolutely essential for personal growth and self-discovery. By being honest with ourselves, we confront our own weaknesses. We acknowledge our areas for improvement. The truth, it allows us to face a reality head on. It enables us to make informed decisions about actions that need to be taken. It's through that process of self-reflection and honesty that we evolve, we become better leaders and better versions of ourselves. If someone gives you bad information, if someone's not telling you the truth, as a leader, you're going to go out and make a decision based on the information that you have. If that's wrong information, if that's bad information, then you are now leading the team astray. So you have to set the tone as a leader and set the tone of truth, regardless of if it's good or bad information, and go from there. There's a great book called The American Icon, and it was about Alan Mulally, and he came from Boeing into Ford, and he took over as Ford CEO, and he took over right as the recession of 2008, right before that time hit, and Ford was not doing well. And there's a great story in there that I love because he wanted the truth from his department heads. They would sit in their board meetings, and when he first went in there, everybody would report that everything's green, everything's up and to the right, because that was kind of the trend for the time. Is that everyone's saying, no, we're good, we're good, we're good. But when you look at the books, when you look at the numbers, that was anything but the case. And so he encouraged people to tell me the truth. Don't just show all green on these slides and tell me that everything's all fine and well. That's not the case. Tell me the truth. And finally, one of his executives said, yeah, something's not right. And they reported it as red during their weekly meeting. And everyone thought that person was going to get fired on the spot, because that's the way things worked in the automotive industry within Detroit at the time. Whether it was Ford, GM, Chrysler, didn't matter. Everyone thought that they had to report red, or report green rather. And so when this person said, no, I've got an area that's red, Alan said, thank you. Thank you for telling me the truth. He didn't belittle him. He didn't fire him. He didn't demote him down to somewhere else. All right, thanks. That's the information I need to know. And it set the tone. And next thing you knew, everyone else truly started reporting what the facts were. They were telling the truth about the areas that they were in charge of. And now that allowed Alan to make the decisions he needed to make to lead the company through the recession and come out of that better on the back half than they were when he first took over, because now he had the right data. Now he had the right information. It was all based on truth. And through that truth and that trust, the team became stronger, they united more, and they ended up being one of the best car companies within Detroit, coming out of the recession than any of the others, because of the truth and the bonds that were formed through his actions. And that allowed him to lead the way he needed to lead. That'll wrap up part 1 of our Ted Lasso leadership series. We're about halfway through all the lessons that I took from the Apple TV series Ted Lasso, and how you can take and implement these things into your leadership styles, into your everyday walks, at home, at work, and really anywhere in between. Make sure you tune in next month as we wrap up the 13 lessons from the Ted Lasso series. Again, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's great to be back in the saddle. Great to get the podcast back up and running after a few months off. And we look forward to what we have in the future. You guys take care, and we'll see you next month.